Hey guys, I almost missed you. It's Hughes history, and we're going to do a little bit of the teaching on the YouTubes. Are you ready for some Three-Fifths Compromise? Because it's going to be on the exam. It's important vocabulary for an American government course, a U.S. history course, or the course of life. How do you like that? The Three-Fifths Compromise, batter up! All right, guys, Philadelphia, baby. Hoot, hoot. Philly, 1787. We have the Constitutional Convention going on, and we were really, at first, amending the Articles of Confederation, and eventually we tossed that bad boy out and we start anew. And one of the compromises that occurs before the Three-Fifths Compromise is called the Great Compromise or the Connecticut Compromise. And of course, you've already learned that. This is what created a bicameral legislature, a House and a Senate. Remember, the Senate, 2 senators per state, and the small states are like, I love it! And then we have a House of Reps based on population. And the large states are like, I love it! And now we can get ready for the Three-Fifths Compromise. Because in order to determine a state's representation for the House of Reps, we need to know their population. So the Constitution sets that every 10 years we do what's called a census. And we're like, 1, 2, 3, there are 100,000 people in Alabama. And what that does is it does 2 things. Number 1, that population number allows us to determine the direct taxes that state's going to pay. But more importantly, for our discussion of the Three-Fifths Compromise, it determines the representation they get in the House of Representation. How many congressmen they are going to be able to send to Washington, D.C. to represent the interest of that state. And the controversy occurs not between small states and large states, but between southern states and northern states, and specifically on how do we count slaves. And the South wants it 2 ways. Number 1, when it comes to counting slaves, they don't want to count them when it comes to direct taxes. They want to make sure that they are treated as property then, because the more population have, the more the direct taxes you're going to pay, and that's going to hurt them. But when it comes to representation, suddenly the South's like, slaves are people, slaves are people, because the more pop you get, the more rep you get, and the more power you get in Congress. And the North is like, hell no! Slaves don't count. Slaves don't count because the more slaves, the more power, and we don't have any slaves. So at the end of the day, the fraction that you get, and I'm getting nauseous as I get ready to say the word, is the 3/5 fraction, compromise. For every 5 slaves, when we do the census, we're going to count like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. 6, 7, 8, 9, 6. For every 5 slaves, you get 3 people. And those people can be counted for your census, your population, and you can get representation off them. So the ironic part of this is that the South is going to get representation from their slaves so they can send that representation to Congress in order to keep their slaves slaves. Now, if we never had the Three-Fifths Compromise, there's a good chance that a lot of American history would be different. Thomas Jefferson probably wouldn't have won the election of 1800. The Indian Removal Act probably would not have happened. Andrew Jackson would not have been able to veto the National Bank. We probably would not have had our compromises that pushed the Civil War off for another 50 or 60 years. So the Three-Fifths Compromise is pretty darn important when it comes to understanding not only the Constitution and the Convention and compromise, but also really, I believe, sectionalism and the Civil War. So there it is, the Three-Fifths Compromise. We're going to say it again. For every 5 slaves, you get 3 people in the census. First, for direct taxation purposes, to determine how much taxes your state pays, but more importantly, to determine your pop for your rep for Congress, the House of Representation. Of course, the Three-Fifths Compromise is going to be bye-bye, baby. When it comes to the 13th Amendment, that's going to nullify and kind of scratch out the Three-Fifths Compromise. But now your brain's a little bit bigger than when you press play. So giddy up for that. Make sure that you check out other videos. We have over 250, and if you haven't subscribed, you should probably subscribe so you can get the latest updates. We put videos out all the time, and you know what I'm going to say if you watched me before. Where attention goes, your energy flows. We'll see you next time, guys. Giddy up, giddy up, giddy up, giddy up, giddy up.